Cleopatra and Mark Antony were two of the most powerful figures of their time. Together they formed an alliance that sought to challenge Rome's dominance and protect Egypt's independence. Their gamble brought them into direct conflict with Octavian, the future Augustus, in one of history's most dramatic power struggles. The end of this conflict not only sealed their fates, but also marked the fall of Egypt's independence. This is the story of how their final stand reshaped history. Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony began as a strategic partnership but quickly grew into a relationship that reshaped the fate of Egypt. Antony, a member of Rome's second triumvirate, sought Cleopatra's wealth and resources to solidify his power in the East. Cleopatra, in turn, saw Antony as a protector and a means to maintain Egypt's sovereignty against the growing power of Rome. Their partnership was both political and personal. Cleopatra provided Antony with significant financial and military support, including fleets of ships and supplies for his campaigns. In return, Antony granted her control over additional territories, expanding Egypt's influence. This mutual dependence created a bond that threatened the balance of power in Rome. Cleopatra's presence in Antony's life caused a political storm. In Rome, Antony's association with the Egyptian queen was seen as a betrayal of Roman values. Octavian capitalized on this, spreading propaganda and portrayed Antony as being under Cleopatra's spell and accused him of forsaking Rome for a foreign queen. Despite the growing tension, Antony and Cleopatra publicly displayed their power. Antony declared Cleopatra the Queen of Kings and acknowledged their children as rulers of Roman territories, acts that further enraged Octavian and the Roman Senate. The stage was set for a confrontation as their alliance pushed Rome closer to war. The alliance between Mark Antony and Cleopatra was seen as a direct challenge to Octavian's authority in Rome. As tensions escalated, Octavian launched a propaganda campaign designed to turn Roman opinion against Antony and Cleopatra. He painted Cleopatra as a dangerous foreign queen who sought to undermine Rome and accused Mark Antony of abandoning his Roman heritage in favor of the Egyptian decadence. A pivotal moment came in 34 BCE when Antony celebrated his donations of Alexandria. In a lavish ceremony, he distributed Roman territories to Cleopatra and their children, presenting them as rulers of lands that included parts of Armenia, Media, and Parthia. Cleopatra was declared Queen of Kings while their son Caesario was presented as the rightful heir of Julius Caesar. To many in Rome, these acts were seen as treasonous, further fueling Octavian's claims that Antony was no longer loyal to Rome. Octavian seized on this anger to consolidate his own power. By 32 BCE, the Roman Senate formally stripped Antony of his titles and declared war, not on Antony directly, but on Cleopatra. This was a calculated move to frame the conflict as a defense of Rome against a foreign threat, ensuring public support for the campaign. The declaration of war marked the beginning of a direct military confrontation. Antony and Cleopatra prepared to defend their territories, amassing fleets and armies in anticipation of the coming conflict. Meanwhile, Octavian mobilized Rome's forces determined to crush the alliance and cement his own control over the public. The climactic confrontation between Octavian and the alliance of Antony and Cleopatra came at the Battle of Actium on September 2, 31 BCE. This naval battle, fought off the western coast of Greece, would decide the fate of Egypt and the Roman world. Antony and Cleopatra assembled a formidable fleet, supported by a significant number of troops. They hoped their combined forces could break Octavian's hold over the Mediterranean. Antony's strategy was to challenge Octavian's navy head-on. He and Cleopatra positioned their fleet at Actium, aiming to block Octavian's access to critical supplies and force a decisive engagement. However, Octavian's fleet, commanded by the skilled general Agrippa, was better trained and more disciplined. Agrippa also cut off Antony's supply lines, leaving his forces in a weakened position as the battle drew near. When the battle began, Antony's fleet struggled to maneuver effectively. Octavian's forces took advantage of their superior organization, outflanking Antony's ships. Amid the chaos, Cleopatra made a fateful decision. Commanding part of the fleet, she suddenly retreated with her ships, sailing away from the battlefield. Historians debate her motives. Some suggest it was a prearranged strategy, while others believe it was a response to the battle's deteriorating situation. Cleopatra's retreat threw Antony's forces into disarray. Believing the battle lost, Antony abandoned the fight and followed her, leaving his fleet to be destroyed by Octavian's navy. The defeat at Actium shattered Antony and Cleopatra's hopes of resisting Rome. It was a catastrophic blow that marked the beginning of the end for Egypt's independence. After their catastrophic defeat at Actium, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Egypt, desperate to salvage their dwindling power. The battle had not only cost them their navy, but also shattered the morale of their allies. Antony's remaining forces were scattered and demoralized, and Cleopatra's resources were critically depleted. Nevertheless, they worked to rebuild their defenses, hoping to repel inevitable Roman invasion. Octavian wasted no time capitalizing on his victory. By 30 BCE, his forces were marching towards Egypt, determined to finish what they had started. Antony tried to rally his troops for a final stand, but his once loyal soldiers began to defect to Octavian. Antony's fleet, hastily reconstructed after Actium, turned against him, with many ships surrendering without a fight. The decisive blow came at the Battle of Alexandria, where Antony's remaining forces crumbled under Octavian's superior military might. Defeated and humiliated, Antony's despair grew. According to accounts, he received false news that Cleopatra had taken her own life. In anguish, he fell on his sword, inflicting a mortal wound. When he discovered Cleopatra was still alive, he was carried to her, dying in her arms, a tragic end for one of Rome's greatest generals. Cleopatra, now left to face Octavian alone, tried to negotiate with him. She offered her wealth and influence in exchange for her children's safety. Octavian, however, saw Cleopatra as a threat and a trophy, planning to parade her through Rome as a symbol of his triumph. Realizing her fate, Cleopatra chose death over humiliation. According to legend, she arranged for an asp to be smuggled into her chamber, dying from its venom. The act ended both her life and the Ptolemaic dynasty, paving the way for Egypt's annexation by Rome. With Cleopatra and Antony dead, Octavian secured total control over Egypt in 30 BCE. The once mighty kingdom, a center of ancient culture and wealth, was annexed into the Roman Empire as a province. This marked the end of Egypt's independence and the Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled for nearly 300 years. Octavian's annexation of Egypt was more than a military victory. It was a symbolic triumph. Egypt's wealth, particularly its grain supply, became a vital asset to Rome, bolstering its economy and solidifying Octavian's political dominance. By controlling Egypt, Octavian not only eliminated a key rival, but also positioned himself as the unchallenged leader of Roman worlds. This victory paved the way for his transformation into Augustus, the first Roman emperor, and the dawn of the Roman Empire. For Egypt, the annexation marked a dramatic shift. No longer a sovereign state, it became a prized province governed by Roman officials. Cleopatra's son, Caesarea, was executed by Octavian, eliminating any potential threat to his rule. Her other children were taken to Rome, where they were paraded as spoils of war before disappearing from historical records. The fall of Egypt marked the end of an era. For centuries, it had been a beacon of power and cultural influence. Under Roman rule, its wealth was drained to serve the needs of the empire. Cleopatra's death and the loss of independence remain one of history's most poignant reminders of the fragility of even the greatest kingdoms.